Alrighty, we have just finished speaking with the mask salesman who has given us 3 days to get back our precious item, as well as Majora's Mask from the Skull Kid. Upon leaving the clock tower, you'll get a short overview of Southern Clocktown, which is the main city of the game, and is also the hub of this adventure. Tattle will immediately mention something about the mask salesman that makes it appear as though she knows him, but she quickly changes the subject. She reiterates again just how ridiculous his terms are, in case you didn't catch on to that yourself, and enforces yet again that you have time limitations, so we only have 3 days to do all this. She recommends going to see the Great Fairy in North Clocktown, which is a very good idea. Now, you can talk to the townspeople if you like to kind of hear what's going on and kind of get a feel for how this place works, but apparently there's a giant ominous moon that is in the sky over Clocktown, and it has a creepy face on it. And now Majora's Mask is renowned for this feature, and you've probably seen it if you've seen any pictures for this game in general. Now, the folks aren't worried about it, but, they're going to continue with their lives as usual, and also there's the annual Carnival of Time, which is going to occur in 3 days as well. Perhaps the mask salesman dislikes celebrating and doesn't want to stick around for that excitement. Now, the various puppies throughout this game, for whatever reason, they'll attack you in your Deku Scrub body, and perhaps it's because you're made of sticks? I don't know. It would be a real shame if someone decided to play fetch with you. Anyway, go around the clock tower itself, and on the opposite side, you'll find an opening that will take you to the north part of town that Tattle mentioned earlier. You want to run forward and spin through the circle of bushes found here to get some rupees. Our goal is to get at least 5 rupees, and you should have that much already, but if you don't, you can always leave this area and come back to make the bushes reappear so you can get additional moolah. Once you have at least 5 rupees, you want to head over to the strange character in the green and red outfit and speak with him. This is actually the first Zelda game in which the Tingle character appeared in, and he's been in several other games since. This 35-year-old man makes comments as though he believes he's a Kokiri from the previous game, but that no forest fairy has come to him to be his partner yet. And he's not from Hyrule at all, so how does he even know all this? He explains that he's a fairy himself, no argument there, and that his father is very ashamed of him, go figure. He usually flies around the world with balloons, and he draws maps, selling them out to people to help out his ashamed father. Such a good boy. Once he's done rambling, you want to go ahead and purchase the map of Clocktown for 5 rupees, which additionally gives you the map for Termina Field that we'll see later on. All in all, it's a great deal, and you'd be crazy to pass it up. Now, you could also purchase the map of Woodfall 2, but we can get it for much cheaper later on, so I recommend you wait on that one. Now, a quick comment I have to make is that the Japanese audience in general immediately fell in love with Tingle. It's kind of a cultural thing. They really like goofy characters with eccentric personalities, and they just find him absolutely hilarious. Now, on the flip side of that, though, the North American audience find Tingle either very strange or genuinely creepy. Suffice to say, because Tingle was such a success elsewhere, several spin-off titles were created in which Tingle is the main character that you play as. And these games were not released in North America, which is understandable. Optionally, you can enter the cave in North Clocktown at this point, and you'll discover that the Great Fairy is missing. By walking forward, you can speak to all the little fairies here, which are apparently pieces of the Great Fairy herself. She's been shattered by the Skull Kid, and until all the pieces are reunited, she will be unable to help you. So I guess Tattle's predictions about the Skull Kid being no match for her were wrong. You want to leave the shrine and hunt down that missing stray fairy. Now, during the day, you can find it in the laundry pool, and you can just look at my mini-map in the bottom right corner to see where that is. The stray fairy is hovering above the water, and you'll have to touch it to retrieve it. In your Deku Scrub body, you can hop several times across the surface of water before you drown. You want to run across it to essentially snag the stray fairy. Now, at night, the stray fairy is actually in a different location. It's floating around in East Clocktown, but it's too high for you to reach in general, so you'll have to use the nearby Deku Flower to fly into it. It's not hard at all, so you shouldn't have any trouble doing this. Either way, once you have collected the stray fairy, you want to return to the cave-like shrine in North Clocktown. Once you get close to the water, it will join with the others and merge together to return to their normal form, which is the Great Fairy of Magic. Now, there are 4 temples in this game, which are dungeons that we'll have to complete, and in each of these 4 temples there are 15 stray fairies that form the Great Fairy that is near each temple. So by finding and returning these stray fairies to their respected shrines, you can get various upgrades that will help you throughout your game. So this little adventure we just had was training for later so that you understand that concept ahead of time. Now, this particular Great Fairy was obviously the easiest, but she's just as grateful as the others, and will be once we get to that point. So she explains that she was tricked by the Skull Kid, who shattered her into pieces. Now, does you just hate it when that happens to you? And thanks, she gifts you with magic power, which enables you to use certain abilities from here on out. You now have a green bar that is just below your health, which is your magic meter, and acts as a type of ammo that allows you to use certain magical abilities that you will learn. Immediately, though, you are gifted with your first magical skill, which is the Bubble Blast. While in your Deku Scrub body, you can hold the B button to blow a bubble, and you can also hold it for longer to blow a bigger bubble, which will travel a little further. The Great Fairy then gives you a clue by saying that you should go see the man in the observatory that is just outside of town, since he may know where the Skull Kid disappeared to. She also warns you to be careful not to underestimate the Skull Kid like she did, and finally she tells you to come back to see her once you return to your normal form. What do you think she has in mind? That's everything we had to do here, so once the cutscene ends, go ahead and exit the cave. Now unfortunately, the guards at the exits of Clocktown will prevent you from leaving because you're just so adorable and young looking, they'll tell you to go find your parents. So it looks like we're gonna have to go find another way to get to the observatory. There's a kid wearing a red cap in North Clocktown that's shooting at a balloon with his blowpipe. You may have talked with him earlier, but he gets annoyed at you and tells you to leave him alone. He claims you're not worth his time unless you can pop his balloon. And now that we have the bubble blast, we can probably manage something. Use the B button and the analog stick to aim around, and then shoot at the balloon to pop it. Jim will be startled and begin looking around, and if you wait too long, then he'll blow up another balloon and start practicing again, so run over and speak with him so that he can acknowledge our greatness. So Jim is the leader of the Bombers, a gang of kids that are around town, and he mentions that they have a hideout that connects to the observatory outside of town. Really? Since that's where we need to go next, it's probably good to find out what we can. He says that you'll need a code to get in, but that he'll only tell it to you if you can pass his test. Say yes once he gives you the option to start. The other Bombers will then get in line and Jim will explain. It's a game of hide and seek in which the kids will scatter across Clocktown and you'll have to hunt them down. You have until tomorrow morning, so if it's night you'll have less time to do it and you may have to start over if you run out of time. There's two kids in North Clocktown, one of them being behind the tree in the southwest corner, and the other one is in the opposite end, hiding behind the slide in the northeast corner. You'll have to tag them in order for it to count, so I recommend using the A button to spin into them at the last moment as you're approaching them. It's really not that hard unless they manage to get away from you initially, and then they become somewhat difficult to catch up to, but I'll explain that in a moment. Next, you want to head through the nearby exit to the east to get to East Clocktown, appropriately named. And if it's your first time entering the area, you'll get an overview that happens to highlight the areas where these particular bombers are hiding. There's a kid here with a yellow-orange cap that's guarding the entrance to their hideout, so just ignore that one for now. Now, one of the bombers is up here on the ledge with a chicken, which are called cuckoos. You can spin off the ledge to travel quickly when you're falling in order to tag the kid right when he lands. Now, if any of these kids are causing you problems and you're having a hard time chasing them down because they're running away from you, you want to simply shoot them with a bubble from a distance, and they'll be stunned for a moment, and then you can run into them with A, and this should easily tag them. Now, the other one is a bit trickier. He's on top of the thatch overhang over the Stockpot Inn, right next to the veranda. You can walk underneath that thatch part to make him go all kamikaze-like off the side. At this point, he'll run away, and he's kind of hard to catch up to. Now, one cool thing I want to point out here is that if you chase either of the bombers near one of those crates here, then they'll hide underneath it, which is kind of a cool little detail that Nintendo took the time to add, since it really gives the game a lot of flavor. Anyway, you can break the crates when you're done playing around and catch the kid if you do decide to chase him in there. It's kind of fun. Alternatively, you can also use the Deku Flower to get on top of the veranda, so don't worry if, he ran up above the Stockpot Inn instead, because you can still chase him down. Of course, you could always just go through the inn itself and then come out on the upper door to get up there as well, so that's always an option too. The final bomber is on the opposite side of town, so just work your way over there, and once again, the first time you enter the area, you'll get an overview that showcases everything. And this one in particular can run off to either the left or right side of this area, and he can get in those exits, so like where the guard is at, or he can also go towards Southern Clocktown, and he can get in those little areas really easily, and you can't chase him down, so you'll have to leave the area and come back, so that makes this kid very annoying. So I recommend you shooting him with a bubble to stun him so that he can't run away, and then you can quickly tag him, so this makes him a lot easier. So just wait until he stops moving, stun him, run over, and smack him. Once you've caught them all, you'll appear back in North Clocktown with Jim and the others. He congratulates you, but explains that they can't let you into their gang because you're not human. Technically, Link isn't even human at all. His race is a Hylian, since he's an elf from Hyrule, and these kids are elves from Termina, so they're Terminians. But because it's an odd situation and it's weird, and it's just a translation anyways, I believe that's why they use the word human here. It's just less complicated and needs less explaining. Anyway, all these kids vote against having you in their gang since they had bad experiences with a past member. Jim will then give you the password, just like he promised, which is the order of the numbers on the back of the kids' shirts. But whatever the number is, you want to write it down on a slip of paper right now, because it's random for each game file you make, and there's 120 combinations, so your password is probably not the same as mine, as you can imagine. I suggest you write down your password on a slip of paper and tape it to your television, because I will be using it in the next chapter. If you don't remember it, that's okay, because you could play with the bombers again to get it once more. Anyway, with that in hand, you want to go to East Clocktown and speak with that kid in the orange cap. You want to give him the correct password, and he'll let you pass. He mentions that there's a bunch of cool stuff in the observatory, so we know we're heading in the right direction. The Boy Scout will then salute you one last time and recite the bomber's pledge. Once he's done talking, venture down into the waterways below Clocktown, where I'll see you for the next video.